Hello, and welcome to another episode of Be a Leader podcast, where we talk about current events in sports, military, and business with the leadership lens. And today we're going to talk about some fresh news. Michigan football just hired Kyle Whittingham to be the next head coach of Michigan football. It's very exciting, and we're going to talk about this from a leadership perspective, as we always do. So the first thing I want to talk about in the hiring of Kyle Whittingham is what Michigan did when they got rid of Sherrone Moore. And the key thing here is you need to define the problem. It is too easy as leaders to quickly problem solve without first defining the problem. I remember my time at McKinsey and Company as a consultant. We spent so much time defining the actual problem. We had to get to the root of it, because whenever you problem solve, then you're going to build solutions and you're going to execute. And if you don't define the right problem from the get-go, you're going to solve something you might not want to solve for at all. It's too easy to do that. So you have to define the problem. And with Sherrone Moore, it was not X's and O's. It was not recruiting. It was character and leadership. Those were the root problems that were going on with Michigan football, and it started with the head coach. And that was the main problem that Michigan had. Sherrone Moore was hired at 37. He's 39 now. He had never been a head coach before. Michigan football, Tier 1 was his first head coaching experience. He was a prior player, and it's very difficult for prior players to start to coach as coaches, think as coaches. He was coaching as a player. He still had that mindset. He hadn't transitioned yet. And honesty was his biggest issue. It was a core issue, his character flaws and honesty. And it came out this year. And then he had scandals. Three ones worth mentioning. He was part of the sign stealing scandal that happened 2 years ago. He also had texting and recruiting scandals that were tied to him. And then the adultery scandal, where he was having an affair with his executive assistant, which led him to get fired and then break into her house and threatening to kill himself, ended up in jail. It was a whole mess, a whole issue that Michigan football did not want to be part of at all. These were the problems. It was destroying trust. The players said they felt betrayed by their head coach, Sherrone. Okay, he was damaging Michigan's image. Michigan prides itself in being leaders and the best. Okay, you can't be a leader and the best if you're living like this. And then the on-field results, and I've mentioned this in many different episodes, of the issues we saw in Michigan football. As the season's progressing, you should get better. You should be peaking. And instead, their issues progressively got worse. Bad discipline on the field, so many flags, giving up in games. The Ohio State game was a disaster. It all was a result of, it was an image of Sherrone Moore as the head coach, because it starts from the top. So what Michigan needed when they were defining the problem, the root problem, was they needed character and leadership back. And that was what they were looking for. So again, never rush into problem solving. Problem solving is so important, but you got to define the problem first. And I believe Michigan did the right thing by defining the problem, because we see that in who they hired next. And I will say Michigan got a little bit lucky because all the main coaches had already left. They had already gotten hired. There was talks about trying to poach someone, but Michigan got lucky. They didn't have to pay a buyout to Sherrone Moore because he was for cause. And they didn't have to pay a buyout for the next guy coming in because they hired someone who was already leaving. Kyle Whittingham already told the University of Utah that he was on his way out, that he was retiring from them. He was going to explore other opportunities or just see where it was. But he was ending the chapter already with Utah before this ever came place. Michigan got really lucky finding the right guy at the right time. So let's go into Kyle Whittingham. He is the exact opposite of Sherrone Moore. Okay, he's 66 years old coming into Michigan, not 37 like Sherrone Moore was. Yet he was also a football player, but he transitioned from being a football player, not coaching like a football player anymore, not coaching like a player, coaching like a coach. He was an assistant coach for 20 years, and then he's been head coach at University of Utah for 21 years. One program, very, very consistent and loyal to one program as a head coach. He has a lot of coaching experience. This is not his first rodeo. Right? These are the issues that I've seen with other coaches. All right, but here he has experience. He's coming in, and what is he known for? Toughness, discipline, attention to detail, defense, things that are going to be very important, things that are needed at Michigan football. He's coming in with everything that Michigan football needs. And I summarize it to three things: the toughness mindset, the character of the person, and the experience. Experience, character, toughness, all things that Michigan needed. It's going to help reset the image. And I think that's the thing to mention here is great leaders need to solve the actual problems, not the loudest problem. I mentioned that in my last point. It's not about the loudest problem. It's about what's the root problem. And the other thing to mention here is that cultural problems need cultural leaders. When I work with startups, I built a space hardware startup myself, and I work with startup entrepreneurs. And the key thing about culture is you hire culture. It is very hard to take people in their ways and change them into a new culture. It's much easier to bring in fresh new people that live that culture already. That's why when you see a lot of times big companies have shakeups like Harley Davidson, I might make that in a future episodes. They're bringing in a new CEO, and the new CEO is bringing new bodies, new people that live a different culture because they need a reset. Here, Michigan needs a new reset. They got to bring in someone who already embodies that different culture that they want emulated. It's not just words on the wall. It's how you live. It's how you live. And that's going to be my next point. Again, culture, it's not about hype. It's about finding the right people who live that way already. And I want to talk into another point, and this might not be talked about many places at all, but being a Marine officer, there's something I really like about Kyle Whittingham, and that is his embodied leadership. That's the term we're going to use, embodied leadership. What do we mean by that? Well, in the Marine Corps, we have very high standards. I mentioned that in other places. You either meet them or you don't. But not only do we hold all Marines to a high standard, Marine officers are held to a higher standard. We need to be able to be the example. And there's no easier place to show off this than PT, right? Physical fitness or physical training in the mornings. Marine officers are expected to be in better shape than the Marines. They need to be able to push them and lead them past whatever barriers they have here mentally. Okay, by being in better shape, we can lead them. We are the example. We are the ones to be emulated. It is part of our duty, especially as young officers, second lieutenant, first lieutenants, captains. We need to be that example. We need to be in better shape. Okay, I can't demand something that I can't do myself, that I can't embody. I have to be the example. That's part of the culture of the Marine Corps. There's other branches for other people, but that's what we are, right? We're not an occupation force. We're an expeditionary force. We have to be ready, and that's what we do. That's how we do it. We build that container, okay? And I'll say, coaches come in all, when you look at the coaching world, I'm going to focus on college. There's all many types. There's coaches that are overweight. There's some fat coaches. There's some very good, big coaches, okay? And I think they're missing an opportunity. And that's what I want to talk about Kyle Whittingham here. There's a lot of power when you are embodying the things you're pushing your players to do. And that's what I want to focus on. It's said that Kyle Whittingham hasn't skipped a workout since 2008. Working out every day, minus his rest days on Sundays. He's found a way for longevity, right? Doing it for a long time and being very disciplined. And so it's easy for him to step in these coaching environments and be very disciplined, right? Focusing attention on detail, being very committed to these things. It's not just about the fitness. It's about embodying what you're demanding from other people. And he's doing that. And he's been doing that for a long time. Okay, he lives the culture of discipline. It's not just talk; he does it, and I applaud this. I think it's very rare, and I think he could be a good Marine officer in a different world. He probably could have been a very good Marine Corps officer. Okay, live the standard before you enforce it. If you don't, being an authority figure can often lead to resentment. Live the standard. Be the standard. I applaud him, and I know it's going to be big. It's going to do great things at Michigan football. And finally, I want to talk about one last thing, and that's Joe Klatt's statement. So Joe Klatt, he played college football. He's a color commentator for Fox Sports. He does the big noon games for college football. I think he's a great commentator with Gus Johnson. I really enjoy watching them both. But he made a statement before all this happened, right, a while ago. And he talked about how he has 3 sons, and he's not sure if any of his 3 sons want to play college sports, but he said, if they do end up, he said, I would love for them to play for Kyle Whittingham. And I say there's no greater compliment than that, to say that you wish your kids would play for them. When I started in the Marine Corps, my mentality was, I want to be the Marine Corps officer I wish I have. And yeah, I had a lot of growth to do. So I worked with mentors and coaches and pushed myself and learned. I was always around people that I could learn from to get better. But that was my mindset. I want to be the Marine Corps leader officer that I wish I had. When I started coaching college basketball, I flipped that. The same thing right there. I'm going to be the coach I wish I had in high school. Or if I would have played college, I ended up playing college basketball or football. And that's another story. But being the coach I wish I had. And now as a father, I try to be the coach that I wish my kids had. And so I really like this comment that Joe Klatt said. Think about it from this perspective: babysit. You're not going to just leave your kids with anyone, are you? No, you care about their safety, about their life. With coaching, it just seems like it's just such a bygone, like it could be anyone. Well, he played before, he'd be good here. Look what he did when he was an athlete himself, or this is all we have. Coaching is in such a fundamental point in their lives. There's two main time of everyone's lives that shapes you for the rest of your life. One is moment of conception to about 3 years old, 2 years old. The environment you are in your mother's womb before you come out and when you come out has huge implications for the rest of your life. And the second one is that 14 to 28, 24, 28 period, which includes high school, college, and military service for those that serve or your first job. That big period right there, you're going to learn so much from your peers, but also the people above you, the adults around you. And it has massive impact for the rest of your life. And so I ask you, be the leader you wish you had, and be the leader you wish your kids have in one day. So that leads us to our final points here. My college basketball whiteboard that we're repurposing for this. So the first one, define the problem before chasing solutions. I talked about that with my time at McKinsey and Company. Don't look for the hype, the loudest thing. Look for the actual problem. Then problem solve it. Then find solutions. Then go after it. Michigan did that in finding Kyle Whittingham. Second, cultural failures demand cultural leaders. It is hard to change people in a different culture. It's much easier to hire it, to bring it in. And that's what Michigan needed. They needed change in leadership and in character. And they did that with hiring Kyle Whittingham. Third, embody the standard before you enforce it. This is part of the special secret sauce of Kyle Whittingham that we can all learn, or what is expected for every Marine Corps officer. You have to embody the leadership, be the example. And we do it, part of which is our physical fitness, and Kyle does that as well. And fourth, be the leader you would trust with your kids. A lot of power here. It really forces you to step up higher. You realize leadership is a calling, okay? It's not a position or a title. It's a way of life. It's how you lead yourself. So be that leader. And as I wrap up this episode, I want to invite you. I have a masterclass on how to become the person who follows through in 2026. We've all had challenges. We might be in a challenge now, and we need to become a different person. And we need to become a different person. I have this 1 hour free call masterclass to show you how to become that person that you need to be to finally follow through this coming year. I invite you, look at the description below for the link for that to sign up. And as we wrap up this episode, as I always say, whether you're leading yourself, leading others, or leading leaders, be a leader. My name is Daniel Pinedo. Thank you. And until next time, Happy New Year's.